Alright, so I'm making this video a hell of a lot sooner than I thought I'd had to, because apparently Konami's decided they're going to drop their ban list. Now, I've already been spoiled a little bit from Discord. I generally try to avoid some spoilers for ban lists, but this time around I got heavily spoiled on the skill rebalancing, which we'll talk about later. And as for the actual card rebalancing, I've heard it is really boring. In fact, it makes my banlist prediction video look absolutely horrendously wrong, as it got literally nothing right. And the reason it got nothing right is, from what I've heard, there are no bans. There are no bans and no limitations, so personally, I hoped there'd be some, just because generally when there's any sort of change in the game, it's a lot more fun or exciting for me. I like when there's changes and bans and limits and whatever things happening to the meta, it's kind of fun. So when there isn't any, it's a little bit boring for me, but if we're being honest, the actual metagame itself was fairly healthy in that it's very diverse. There's a lot of top tier decks right now, and most of them are fairly new as well, so it was hard for Konami to even sort of hit them in general because they are new. And the meta was pretty diverse, so it's like the meta really needed any bans desperately or anything. I personally think that the meta game is a little bit too strong right now, and that rogue decks do seem to be struggling to compete with those higher tier decks. Because if you look at the current KC Cup results, out of the top 100 decks, normally in KC Cups there's a bunch of rogue decks that are sprinkled throughout the results, but this time around, there weren't really any. There was one Shadow deck, and the other 99 lists were all considered top tier decks, which I don't really see as like... I personally want the meta to be a little bit weaker just so rogue decks have a bit of an easier time competing, but if we are being honest, when the meta is super diverse, it's filled with new decks, it's fairly healthy looking, if they want to do a sort of skip ban list like this, I'm fairly down for it, so let's check out what the unlimits were. So first of all, we got Tour Guide. So this in Duel Links is going to change basically nothing, as the only deck that was using this, I think, was Burning Abyss. Otherwise, it's not like in Master Duel where there's a bunch of like D&D things and cool stuff you can do with this, where you make different rank 3 Xyz monsters. The only thing you can really do with this in Duel Links is just make Burning Abyss, I think. If I quickly have a look at some Tour Guide... Yeah, so currently Tour Guide's being used in, we've got Arc Fiends, Burning Abyss, and Evil Eye. So, I mean, if no one's using it, it's kind of cool that it's being unlimited, but I don't think this will change anything. It does give some more power to Burning Abyss, which was a fairly strong archetype a while ago, so maybe that deck will have a little bit of an uprising, but I highly doubt it will change a whole lot. Alright, Meluseek. This one's a little bit more important, considering Altergeist is an archetype that is sort of verging on tier 3, depending on what's currently going on meta-wise. It's a pretty bad meta for Altergeist, because current meta is pretty bad for any back row deck, because any back row deck just kind of gets farmed by things like Altergeist, or even Blue Eyes currently, with it's all these cards that like dodge back row. Whenever you try to target one of their monsters, they swap it out for something, or the striker, they just link it off immediately. It's kind of hard to make back row decks work really well. At least now Meluseek, or like the Altergeist archetype, can actually play the Limit 3 trap cards and still play this card, so fairly significant buff to a trap card deck to be able to play the strongest trap cards in the game. But I don't think Altergeist will do anything too important. It might sneak their way into tier 3, but that's probably about as far as they'll go. Starry Night. So this card was limit 1, I believe. It's the trap card. So cool, this got unlimited, considering it did absolutely nothing for the archetype. It got released, and Starry Night went from being a fairly average sort of mid deck to a fairly average sort of mid deck. So nice it got unlimited. I don't think it affects like anything though, considering this card was heavily searchable. So if you wanted this card, you'd just search for it. So it's not like it'll change the deck all that much. I don't think it was competing for any slots in Starry Night, as far as I'm aware. I can't really look up anything to see what to compete with, or I can't even think of anything. So, I mean, maybe this will change something that I don't realize, but I feel like having a card that was heavily searchable being unlimited like this will change not a whole lot. Alright, Spiral Dragon. Sure, this is like, obviously Tachyon got really like severely butchered by Konami, which was kind of unfair considering it was a fairly recent deck. Yeah, this changes like nothing though, because the severity of the hits to Tachyon mean that no matter what they do to it, unless they just revert like the skill changes, which they of course shouldn't do, no matter what cards they unlimit and stuff, I don't think it will change too much. The deck got just so severely gutted. Yeah, it's fine to have this thing back. It won't change anything. The deck will still be severely gutted from what they did to the skill mostly, so sure. You got a Rhino back. This is kind of cool. This is a card that I liked a lot because it was the rank climbing card. You climb atop Xyz monsters. This thing had no reason to be limited. It's been limited for God knows how long now. I think it was limited from the Onomat meta like 20 decades ago. So sure, it's nice to have an extra tool you can put into our extra decks now for climbing atop insect monsters. It was a cool little package you could play in certain decks. So nice to see it back, and I think this actually will see some play in some places now that it's free and not competing with anything. Alright, what we got next? Magistus. I don't really like the whole Magistus package thing too much, but it probably won't do anything anymore considering that BLS isn't a top tier deck, and that was the only deck really using it. I think this was, I don't know what limitation this was on, but this was being used with the other Magistus card for the normal summon, equip it to have that toolbox going on. So, sure, I don't think it will change anything with BLS being nerfed, but BLS is, yeah, if BLS has fallen off, I don't think this will do a whole lot. It's nice for Magistus themselves, though, having one of their limitations removed. Thomas. So I think they just got this card moved slightly on the ban list anyway to free up some slots in D2D. So I don't think this will change anything either, because I think I think Thomas wasn't competing with anything, if I remember correctly. I could be just talking out my ass here. I think Thomas was just at whatever number it was at just to make sure it was slightly limited, like its consistency was limited or something. Either way, it won't do anything, because D&D currently is not doing anything, and I don't think having more copies of your Thomas here will do much, so sure, at least there are unlimited cards that don't really deserve to be on the ban list anymore. And, oh yeah, this is the same as this one, same reasoning. It's sure, as long as BLS is nerfed, this won't change anything. And that's it. And then we've got your Rush Duel stuff, which you guys can go through yourselves, as every Rush Duel ban list I've gone through has triggered the hell out of me, so I'm just not going to bother reading Rush Duel ban lists anymore. I've lost all faith in Konami on that one. Alright, let's check out the skill rebalancing. So I've already been spoiled on this, so this is pretty exciting. So we've got two Rush Duel skills, which you can read yourselves, but the one that we want to worry about is the Shadow buff. This is really strange. To me, it looks like it's been severely mistranslated. I don't believe it's the translation we've got, because it seems hella sus, but we have to wait and see on it. Maybe it is mistranslated, maybe not, because if it's not mistranslated, this is one hell of a buff for the skill. So the skill says, this skill's second effect can only be used once per duel if all the monsters in your deck, excluding extra deck, are Shadow monsters or spellcaster monsters. So very important to note, if this isn't a mistranslation, which I'm assuming it is, this only applies to the second effect. The rest of the effect can be used if you don't use the second effect. So you can use this in literally any deck, as long as you're not using the second effect. So keep that in mind. At the beginning of the duel, choose 2 Shadow trap cards from your deck at random and send them to the graveyard, and add 1 El Shadow Winder to your extra deck, and 3 Shadow Fusion and 1 Shadow Schism to your deck. During your main phase, shuffle 1 Shadow card from your graveyard or among your banished cards into the deck. So, first effect, pretty nice. We've got your 2 trap cards in the graveyard, obviously making it a bit easier to get a hold of your Schism, is that the name? Let me have a look real quick. I'm pretty sure it's called Schism, right? Yeah, Schism. So makes it a lot easier to get a hold of Schism, which is really cool. But the main thing to note about this skill, that's the most exciting part, is this skill's second effect. So we ignore the second part, pretend you don't get your shuffling effect, which, you know, it is a nice little effect being able to shuffle your cards back, but it doesn't really matter too much. If you don't apply the second effect, you can use this now in any deck whatsoever. No restriction. You can put Winder in any archetype. If that's how this skill is worded, and this isn't a mistranslation, we can now play Shadow Winder in any archetype, which is really cool. So I'm not really sure what decks can make use of that, but being able to pair Shadow with anything else just makes for a hell of a lot more fun, at least in terms of just like the builds and stupid stuff we can create. So I'm excited to do this. I forget what a Winder's made out of. It's just like a dark monster, right? Winder. Yeah, 1 Shadow monster plus a dark monster, so any dark deck can play this thing now, which will be real interesting. I'm not really sure what archetypes we can mess around with, but Yeah, I'm personally in the boat of this is going to be a mistranslation. There's no way this is only applying for the second effect, the whole limitation. It's got to be some poorly translation here. There's absolutely no way that they're just gonna let us play Shadow in just whatever we feel like, because that'd be too much fun, and Konami hate fun, so there's just no way. Yeah, the skill's second effect can only be used once per duel if all the monsters in your deck are Shadow monsters or Spellcaster monsters. Literally only applying to the second effect, which is the effect we don't even care about, so yeah, I don't know. This seems really powerful, really, really, really strong. So I had to wait and see what they actually did, because I'm not trusting this translation at all. But if that is the case, you're gonna see a few videos about me stuffing Shadow and things, because that'll be really fun. Anyway, that's gonna do it for today's little ban list video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff, and let me know your thoughts on the ban list down below. Should they have actually banned some cards? Is the meta healthy enough where they didn't need to? Or what do you think of this Shadow change? It's an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching, and hope you see you in the next one. Laters.